it just seems like people online weren't really that into it either.
And Bendy and the Dark Revival is just up in the air.
The company's new mandate was get it done, good enough.
Lee and Mike being to fire almost 50 employees with little to no notice right before Christmas. Cool.
Oh, hey man, how's it going? Is something wrong? I'm pissed after you made me play that shitty volleyball game a while back. Sorry about that, man. Oh, hey, maybe we can go somewhere. That'll cheer you up. Alright, what are the options? There's Disney World. Already went there. There's Nintendo Land. That place is flooded as fuck. Bendy Land? Where did he go? Get in the car, man. We're going to Bendy Land. Oh, okay. Man, this trip got to be peak fix. Man, this place is kind of ass. Well, look at you, Mr. Negative. Mascot horror. What comes to mind?
Oh yeah! And nothing of value was lost.
Yeah, fucking chaos. The discussion of mascot horror is pretty polarizing throughout the horror community. But why is that? Well, let's start at the beginning. So there are 3 subcategories in the horror genre. There's AAA horror, where a horror game was made by a big corporation, i.e. Resident Evil and Dead Space come to mind. There's indie horror, where a horror game was made by a small team. Games like The Forest, Outlast, Inside, and Monstrum come to mind. And then there's mascot horror. Ugh. Woo! Mascot horror to most of the horror community is considered the laughingstock out of the 3. It's mainly considered to be the worst for a couple reasons. Most mascot horror games usually steal ideas from other games, complicate the story so much that it doesn't make sense, bare bones gameplay, and possibly its worst offender, being monetized to children! And no, I wasn't joking when I said that. Mascot horror games are usually heavily monetized towards children, with merch being the main selling point. But what caused all of this to happen? Well, we need to turn to the game that started this whole subgenre off. Five Nights at Freddy's was essentially the game to kick off this whole subgenre off in the horror space, for better and for worse. Five Nights at Freddy's took the internet by storm when it released back in August 8th of 2014. Because of FNAF's massive success, everyone wanted a piece of that FNAF pie. This is why we have gotten so much of these types of games throughout the years after FNAF's release. The reason why these games are super popular with kids is because of YouTube.
Oh, brother!
Kids usually discover these games usually by YouTubers who play that game in question.
On 3, 1, 2. Was that the bite?
These games also have a very cute vibe to it all, with a pinch of horror in it. This is why games like Iron Lung and Sons of the Forest aren't at those high in popularity compared to mascot horror games, because they don't have the same ingredients to attract that specific crowd. Or kids need to work up on their manning up skills, I guess. These games both attract both kids and their parents' credit cards! So where do I stand in mascot horror?
Sir, why do you think we came here?
Personally, I'm pretty mixed on this subgenre. Don't get me wrong, there are great mascot horror games out there that had both love and effort poured into it. FNAF, obviously, Dark Deception, Juju Charles, and Mr. Hoff's Playhouse. There is quality to be found in this subgenre, but for every one good mascot horror game that comes out every 5 years or so, actually no, that's not the case. It's not like 5 years, it's like 1 or 2 years, I don't know. We get like 5 bad ones. Specifically, Poppy Playtime, Hello Neighbor, Rainbow Friends, and Garden of Bandman 1 and 3. And 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10, and 11, and 12, and 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Seriously, when will the series end? So, mascot horror.
Yeah, it kind of blows.
So mascot horror kinda stinks, but there is one mascot horror game that I think is personally my favorite mascot horror game, and it's not even FNAF, and that game is... Actually, this is my favorite mascot horror game, but hear me out.
This is the worst hear me out you ever said.
Bendy and the Ink Machine was a mascot horror game that came out of nowhere and took the internet by storm. Wait, didn't I say this before? It has spawned multiple games since and a lot of merchandise. No shit, Sherlock! And with the new game that came out recently, Bendy and the Dark Revival, I thought it would be the perfect time to revisit this part of my childhood and see if any of these games have aged well, or if they're just all Garden of Bandman. What the? Did we just fly out of nowhere?
Oh man, that trip was peak fixin'. Sir, are you serious? We almost died there.
What are you talking about, man? We got to meet an old man, we got to dig around the place, I even got to sue an angel. You what? Bendy and the Ink Machine was originally released on Game Jolt on February 10th, 2017, which actually became one of the first games to release on that platform. It was created by two people, Demili and his programmer Mike Mood. The game was originally intended to be made for fun, according to Mike Mood, taking only 5 days to make the first chapter. Oh my god! 5 days to make one game? Holy damn, game development must be easy! Move over, Ubisoft and EA! I'm gonna make the next Garden of Bandman! However, like I said before, Bendy took over the internet. Both Demili and Mike Mood were surprised by this success, so much that they dropped all projects they were thinking about doing so they can work on Bendy. Parts of the game were released in chapters, which is similar to what Telltale Games were doing with their games. The game released its final chapter on October 26, 2018, making the game fully complete. So, what's my history with this game? Well, 12-year-old me found out this game from a certain YouTuber, and that was...
Who is in here? I would like 30 chicken McNuggets, please. Please stop showing me weird
you need
things
therapy.
Like
Yep, on it.
I was instantly hooked by the style and setting of Bendy. This made a 12-year-old me want to know more about this world. I watched the rest of the game from 8-Bit Ryan, who is another YouTuber who makes Let's Play content. Ryan was essentially the one that made me discover the franchise even more. And, oddly enough, he was also the same one who introduced me to the Resident Evil franchise. So that's gotta count for something, right? Anyways, I never got to actually play the game itself until the game was released on mobile devices. I'm on the highway to hell. Honestly, it might be a great time to play through this game. Alright, I'm gonna start a new game save and... Are you fucking serious? Yep! Just like Scott the Wasp versus your mom! Bendy and the Ink Machine also had technical issues. But unlike Scott the Wasp's cinematic masterpiece where the PC version was the worst version, for Bendy, It was the complete opposite. And holy damn, what in the hell went wrong here? I'm not even exaggerating, but this is easily one of the worst console versions I ever experienced. Yes, maybe worse than Cyberpunk.
Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
So what went wrong actually? Well, let's start at the fact that this version looks way worse than the PC version. Now, I know I sound nitpicky when I say this since PC games usually look way better than the console version's counterparts, but this is one of those cases where I say, you're gonna get this shit to run on a PS4? And unfortunately, they couldn't even do that! Bendy and the Ink Machine on all consoles runs at 30 frames per second, which is extremely unacceptable for a game like this, especially a walking simulator. This game isn't getting the Uncharted 4 level excuse when it comes to capping performance at 30 FPS, that's for sure. What's worse is that the achievements also got screwed in the console version. In fact, over half of the achievements are missing in the console version.
What is it? That stench. I've smelled it before.
And on top of all of that, there's the awful render distance. Like, look at this. This is totally unacceptable. This board is essentially glued together with really bad flex glue. Sorry, Phil Swift. Well, that version sucked. So what about the PC version? Is that version any better? Why, yes it is. The PC version of Bendy and the Ink Machine is the best way to play this game. That's right, suck it ponies. Oh shit! So the PC version of Bendy and the Ink Machine is good, but there's one problem that kind of ruins the entire experience. This fucking button. You might be wondering, what's the problem? Oh great, alright. So, when you progress through the game, this icon appears. When this icon appears, it saves your game, which is extremely common in most games nowadays. However, if this icon stays on your screen for more than 10 seconds, start running for the hills! This is because there's a bug in the game where the game will refuse to save. And the icon staying on the screen is a huge red flag that this bug has occurred. The problem here is that if an average gamer plays most of the game without noticing the icon staying on screen, quits the game to go do something else, then comes back and sees his progress wasn't saved, and then gets very pissed about losing his progress, and then never plays it again. Or he just looks up the entire thing on YouTube. I don't know. There is a way to fix this issue though. If you get this bug, you need to immediately quit the game and relaunch it. This will fix the bug. And again, this bug happened on random.
Can we get to the fucking game already?
Jeez, I didn't even know you were sitting there. I'm just going to get the gameplay portion of this game out of the way very quickly because, well...
My god, this is dry as hell. Where's the meat?
The dog ate it! The gameplay in this game is very bare bones, which is very standard for most Mascot horror games in general. The best way I could describe the gameplay in this game is that it's at best a walking simulator with a really bad combat system to boot. Personally though, the gameplay is alright for the most part. There's just nothing interesting I can really say about it. Everything else about the game though is way more interesting, so let's get into it. Chapter 1. So the story begins with our main character named Henry receiving a letter from our old business partner, Joey Drew, who asked us to come back to the studio because he wanted to show us something. It better be a new PS5. We then entered the workshop, and we soon then discovered right away that the workshop is more run down than my dad's garage. After admiring how run down the workshop is, we also admire something else, and that's its graphics. The graphics are the best part of this game. The game looks both run down while also looking like something you would see from an 80s cartoon. It also looks like the entire game was drawn with ink. The visual style of this game is the reason why this game blew up to begin with. It's also the reason why I grew a very strong sense of attachment to this game to begin with. Mascot horror games usually attract a certain crowd because of how interesting the game is on a visual level. Well, mostly. After exploring for a bit, we go down to the room titled the Ink Machine. We are then greeted with a bottomless pit alongside a lever contraption that has no power. After getting the batteries and flipping the switch, we are then greeted to this. Yep, that's the ink machine. You know, the name of the game. This cutscene does a great job of piquing the player's interest, i.e. making them interested in what the machine does and wanting them to see what it does when turned on. So after witnessing peak fixin', we get access to more areas of the studio, and we see a monster killed with its ribcage pulled out.
Oh my god, is that Goofy? Yeah, my balls!
We then go to a room where we power the ink machine. In order to turn it on, we need to collect several different items. A plus, a vinyl, a gear, an inkwell, a wrench, and a gear. After placing all the items on their respective pedestals, we now need to go to the same room where we found the plus to override the ink. After that, we can finally turn on the ink machine. After flipping the switch, the entire studio dims its lights, signifying that we fucked up really badly. We return to the ink machine and we see that the room is boarded up, and then oh shit! After getting spooked by the ink demon, we then tried to run for the exit and Jesus Christ! Look how slow Henry's running speed is. He somehow runs slower than the average elderly person. Like, how is that possible? Leon Kennedy can outrun a fucking statue for Christ's sake 10 years or so ago, if that makes it more embarrassing. Not like that matters much though, since we end up falling through the floor before we were even close to escaping. We drain the ink multiple times, we then find an axe, and then we keep walking forward until we get to the end, where nightmares get so bad for Henry that he gets knocked out. Man, he really needs a therapist. Thank God I got one. What? Those are the issues you have? Man, you need to grow some balls. What? Chapter 2. So after Henry experienced the worst nap in human history, we wake up, get our axe, and progress deeper in the studio. We encounter some cult-like room, and we then get an audio recording from Sammy Lawrence. Wait, there's audio recordings in this game? Yeah, something I neglected to mention is that there are audio recordings scattered throughout the entire game. These audio recordings vary between different workers that worked at Joy Juice Studios. These audio recordings contain something that is extremely common in Mascot horror games. The lore! Okay, let's slow ourselves down right there. I'll talk more about the story when we get to its sequel, so it's not that confusing. Okay, we good? Alright, let's go. So the audio recording I was talking about earlier was from Sammy Lawrence, who is the music director of the music studio. In the audio recording, he talks about some cult type shit. Yeah, he's insane. After hearing his recording, we go down a hallway and see...
Hello? Excuse me, can you help me? Hello? Where the hell did he go?
Yes, that was Sammy Lawrence if you were wondering. After encountering him, there's a door we need to unlock. So we need to press 3 switches. So... I did it. After that, we get to the music studio that I already mentioned. We find an exit, but it's unfortunately flooded with ink. And in order for us to drain it, we need to use the pump that is located in Sammy Lawrence's office. According to Sammy Lawrence in an audio recording in the music studio, the ink machine caused consistent flooding throughout the studio. Specific areas would become flooded due to the ink machine. So Georgiou's fix was to install a pump in Sammy Lawrence's office to drain the ink if that ever happened again. So yeah, there's the context for that. Unfortunately, we can't enter Sammy Lawrence's office because the pipe is pissing on the door. And unfortunately, Henry is a complete pussy for some reason, since he won't enter the door with the ink on, even though he had no trouble taking a quick ink bath 1 chapter ago. So because the pipe has plot armor, we need to stop the ink from pissing itself. So we go to find all the valves to stop the ink. One is in Sammy's sanctuary and one is in the sewers. In order to get it, we need to find the keys to Wally's closet, which is in one of those garbage cans. And then we need to listen to, that's not supposed to happen, isn't it? We listen to the audio recording for the code to open the sanctuary. We need to turn on the projector and then play all the instruments on stage in order. The sanctuary opens up and I find a pump. I also find out that Sammy Lawrence prays while taking a fucking shit. Old people be saying that their generation was better. Yeah, keep telling yourself that. After that, we go down to the sewers and we find the pump, but it's missing the valve. We go down to the sewers and we see a human blob with a funny looking ass hat. I'll just go ask him nicely for the valve back.
Sorry I had to do that. Nice hat though.
Yeah, I chose violence. After killing the blob and getting the valve back, we were able to use the pipe, and now the pipe no longer has plot armor. Yay! We enter his office and flip the pump control switch. We attempt to exit, and... God damn it. So now Samuel Lawrence has captured us. OMG! What is Samuel Lawrence gonna do to us?
Let us begin. The ritual must be completed. Soon he will hear me. He will set us free.
Yeah, he wants to kill us. After explaining how messed up he is, he goes into a small sound booth and he's dead. This isn't the last time Sammy Lawrence gets killed, by the way. After dealing with some searchers, we make our way forward to escape Bendy, and then... Oh shit! So after getting spooked by the ink demon again, we run in a scripted chase sequence until we reach a door and somehow escape him. Oh man, the ink demon's greatest weakness. A fucking board. We're then greeted by a not so dead of the creature we saw back in chapter 1. And no, it's not Goofy! Chapter 3. Chapter 3 starts with Henry waking up from his bed. We are now living in the residence of our good buddy that we met at the end of the last chapter. His name is Boris, by the way. In order to progress, i.e. exit his safe house, we need to literally make Boris some soup. Why does he think he's my dad?
Well, I think it's quite obvious, Mr. Max. You see, he thinks he's your dad because no one gave an absolute shit about this franchise since it took them 400,000 years to release a sequel. This would further explain why he thinks you're the only dad who ever came back with the milk. But hey, at least it's not as complicated as the Bendy lore. Also, Mr. Max gets absolutely no bitches.
After making Boris some soup, he gives us the lever to open the door and now we can progress. Also, the area is so dark that it's essentially a brick wall somehow. After going through the dark hallway, Boris goes through the vents in order for us to unlock the door so we can progress. And then we see this.
Wow. I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, a toy factory. This is easily one of the most interesting areas of the game, by the way. We move the toy cells and we get an audio recording from a certain someone.
I don't be seeing what the big deal is. So what if I went and painted some of those bendy dolls with a crooked smile? That's sure no reason for Mr. Drew to be flying off the handle at me. And if he really wants to be so helpful, he could be telling me what I'm to be doing with this warehouse I got full of that angel whatchamacallit. Not a scrap of that misty shell. You'd probably have to melt it all down to be rid of it all.
Yes, that's Jacksepticeye if you guys were wondering. Man, if I had a nickel for every time Jacksepticeye appeared in a Mascot horror game, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's crazy it happened twice. Moving the toy shelves a bit more, we enter a room and... Honestly, this scene was scary the first time, but now every time I replay this game, I just look down at the floor the entire time. After that, we get 2 choices, the demon path and the angel path. Neither of these change the overall story or ending of the game, or chapter if you want to say that, but there is one difference between them. 2 different achievements! There are 2 different audio recordings in each hallway. One is from Joy Drew and one is from Susie Campbell. Joy Drew says some boring shit, but Susie Campbell says some really dark stuff. We'll come back to this later. We find Boris again, he jump scares us, I whack him for being a dick. We make it to a door where it can only be opened if both levers are flipped at the same time. We find the lever and... Wait, wasn't that supposed to be scary?
Yeah, apparently.
This is Piper, who is one of the members of the Butcher game, which consists of 3. Piper, Fister, and Striker, who, similar to Bendy, oh shit, are messed up versions of their cartoon counterparts. I really like their designs. They resemble their cartoon counterparts but have a messed up feel to them. After dealing with good old Piper here, we flip the switch, take the elevator down, and we're going to meet the woman we saw earlier. We go down a hallway and we see a lot of dead Borises, which causes Boris to relive flashbacks to the war. and we continue to move until we get to our crib. This is Alice Angel, who was another mascot at JoJo Studios. So Bendy, alongside Boris and Alice, were the main mascots of the entire company. So essentially it has come full circle, now we have seen all three. 2/3 of them are messed up, by the way. Alice Angel says that if we do our bidding, C will let us leave. Alice then asks us to get some spare parts.
What's with the alarm? Oh, sorry about that, man. It goes off every time an unnecessary fetch quest happens.
We get the spare parts, and Alice Angel wants us to get ink from swollen searchers. After getting the ink, Alice asks us to get a car battery. Wait, what? You probably know where I'm going with this, but this fetch quest format is a no-go. The main problem with chapter 3 is that most of this chapter is just fetch quests, and boring ones at that. These side quests add nothing to the game and felt like it was only done to pad out the length of this chapter instead of coming up with more interesting ideas to make the player's time fail warranted. I'm not sure why they did this. Hate to break it to you, JoJo Series and the Fork Brothers, but walking down hallways is not engaging. Whenever I do these side quests, I'm always like, this is literally equivalent to a Ubisoft game essentially, with its overabundance of fetch quests throughout its open world. Like, seriously guys, come on! However, there is one thing that kind of saves the chapter from being utterly boring, and that's the Ink Demon himself. Throughout chapter 3, the Ink Demon will stalk around every floor looking for you. The way he appears is kind of frightening. When he's close, you'll see ink covering the walls and floors. You'll hear a heartbeat sound playing when he's here. And if he catches you, he will not stop chasing you. Don't even bother trying to outrun him because he's faster than you. And if he touches you, it's instant death. He's also impossible to predict since he can show up at complete random, making it harder to plan out to avoid him. This is honestly what I love about this game the most, and it's the reason why doing the fetch quest isn't a huge issue for me, despite how uneventful most of them are. Now, you can give me the argument that there's no consequence of the Ink Demon killing you since you respawn with all your items that you already collected, but I don't know, I like that the game keeps you on your toes. The only problem I have with the Ink Demon is that this is the only chapter where he feels like a legitimate threat. In every other chapter though, he's a straight up joke. Alright, let's take a look at what he does in each chapter. Chapter 1, he jump scares you. Chapter 2, he chases you in a scripted chase sequence. Chapter 3, which I just described. Chapter 4, he jump scares you, again, in a vent. And in chapter 5, he's the final boss. And no, this doesn't count. So essentially, the Ink Demon is barely a threat throughout the game, and he gets less threatening the more times you play it. Which I know since I played this game multiple times before and during this production of this video in question. Honestly, this fact kind of brings the game down. Man, I wish they would take this feedback and fix it in a sequel or something. 4 fetch quests later, take the elevator down to the depths and we get to meet the projectionist. Who? You know, the one with the projector on his head? Yeah, that one. His design is perfect. I mean, come on, he has a projector as a head. This is truly peak horror design, folks. What I also like about him is that he uses his projector as a light to find his prey, which is a nice touch. So our task now is to gather 5 hearts that are scattered throughout the maze while the projectionist is hunting us.
Man, that projection looking ass man about to make this part difficult. I really need to stop saying that.
So you're probably gonna say, OMG, there's a Tommy gun in this game? And yeah, there is. I forgot to mention this, but before you do each side quest Alice gives you, she gives you a specific weapon for that specific task, which does different amounts of damage depending on what weapon you're given, with the axe being the strongest, while the plunger being the weakest. But among these weapons is a fucking Tommy gun, which you can get when Alice gives you the final task. However, when you try to grab it, it evaporates into ink. The average player thinks this is a troll and you're not actually supposed to get it. But you can actually get it. In order to get it, you need to change the ink blob to the ink machine, which can be found next to the Jacksepticeye's audio recording. Go down the demon path and then do the entire chapter without dying. And then you can get that Tommy gun. Now thankfully, I'm extremely cracked at this game. So I was able to get the Tommy gun very easily, and was able to make the final section of this chapter an absolute joke. After that, we give the ink heart to Alice Angel, and she finally gives us our freedom. which I would be saying if Alice didn't pull out the most fattest Uno reverse card type shit in human history, because he ends up sabotaging the elevator and ends up setting the elevator crashing down deeper into the studio. The reason Alice is doing this is because he wants Boris in order to become beautiful again. Yeah, again, we'll come back to this later. The elevator then crashes down to the bottom floor, which unfortunately knocks us out. And then the f***ing bitch takes the poor dude away. I'm suing this bitch when I'm done. That bitch is getting sued tonight! So after spending approximately 5 seconds on making my case to sue Alice Angel for kidnapping, we can finally start Chapter 4. So Chapter 4 starts after the events of the first game. And our goal is very simple, rescue Boris. We go down some hallways, always nice to see, and we get to a door, and we need a valve. We grab the valve, listen to someone having a fucking stroke, and we open the door. We enter a room where we need to put specific books on the bookshelves in order to open the door. Nothing else happens besides that. Well, except for this. Yeah, Henry has probably been eating some edibles recently.
Boris, these edibles ain't shit!
We then enter a chasm, which is something we haven't seen before. Thank God! Something different! I was already getting tired of the same linear hallways in the first 3 chapters. We then need to get across the chasm. So we use this machine, which is able to create certain objects if we feed it a blob of ink. After creating the gear, we flip the switch and we can board the lift. We go across the chasm and this happens. Is that supposed to be scary? Yep! After we make our way across the chasm, we get more edible side effects. We then make our way up a long flight of stairs and we get greeted to this. This scene, while nothing groundbreaking at first glance, actually shows this game's biggest strength. What makes Bendy in the ink machine shine in my opinion is when it has its grand moment. The ink machine's reveal, seeing Samuel Lawrence for the first time, the elevator scene, and then this is what makes the game shine in my opinion. It makes it feel like something interesting is always happening in the game, and it's usually a payoff after dealing with the nonsense the game throws at you. Later on, we found out that these guys are called Lost Ones, which is very fitting. Overall, a great scene. And then we get to the vent part and I immediately want to fall asleep. Yeah, this section is a bore because nothing really happens. The ink demon jump scares you in the vent, which I mentioned a while back, but besides that, nothing really happens. It's not long though, so thank God for that. We enter a room to meet another important character, who is Bertram Piedmont. Did he piss on a mountain?
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Hey guys, I come to make an announcement. I'm pissing on the moon! So Bertram Piedmont was an engineer for a Bendy themed amusement park. That's right, an amusement park. It was being developed around when the studio was still in business, and unfortunately never got released. What a shame. Hey, so Editor Max here. So while I was editing this video in question that you're currently watching, I discovered that Bendyland actually did officially open before Joey Drew Studios went belly up, as proof of Bendyland tickets being in Joey Drew's apartment. Whoops! And crazily enough, we get to actually see what the theme park could have been. The entire area is filled with carnival games, carnival decorations, and creepy animatronics. That's definitely not sus. Definitely refreshing to see. In order to progress, we need to get power to the haunted house. In order to power it on, we need to flip 4 switches in order to power the house on. To get the first switch, we actually need to play carnival games in order to open it. I love that they took advantage of its settings from a gameplay perspective instead of being a giant set piece. After flipping the first lever, a door opens to another room. We need to flip 2 levers, one for the power and one to open the door back to the main hub. There's also Butcher Game members around the area too, so you'll have to distract them. Or you can be me and wing it. Oh, I died. After flipping both switches, we enter another room, and we see a table with an audio recording on it. And instead of describing what happened during the audio recording, I'm just gonna show you.
The biggest park ever built. A centerfold of attractions. Each one more grand than the one before it. It makes my eyes come to tears at the thought. But then, Mr. Drew, for all your talk of dreams, you are the true architect behind so many nightmares. I built this park. It was to be a masterpiece, my masterpiece. And now you think you can just throw me out? Trample me to the dust and forget me? No! This is my park, my glory. You may think I'm wrong, but I'm still here!
Yeah, we essentially just walked into a boss fight. The build-up to this scene was perfect. You can tell all the emotions that Bertram is feeling by his voice alone, venting his frustration towards Joey Drew because he wanted to claim his park as his. And the buildup of the carousel powering up while Bertram says, "I'm still here," was executed perfectly. The boss fight itself though, it's fine. The boss fight itself isn't anything too crazy. You need to use it as that drops when the desk gets destroyed by the carousel and hit all the knobs on the arms of the carousel. Once you destroy all his arms, you defeat him. And then after the doors closes on the carousel accepting its defeat, that's it. We can now flip the switch and move on to the next area. Oh, and by the way, this area in the PS4 version of the game was the only area that was able to run at 60 frames per second. Seriously though, how the hell did they fuck up this version? Anyways, we enter the 4th area and then... Oh, come on, this motherfucker is still alive? Guess respawning exists in this universe. I could sneak through this area carefully. Or... I did it. We then tried to leave the area after flipping the lever, but then the projectile appears out of thin air and starts chasing us. We then hide in the miracle station. Then when the projectile tries to open the miracle station, the Ink Demon appears, fights him, kills him, looks slightly in the miracle station, ignores us, refuses to elaborate, and leaves. Yeah, that's the entire cutscene in a nutshell. We then flip the main switch and we can now enter the haunted house and rescue Boris! Alice, you son of a bitch! So yeah, unfortunately we were too late. Alice has already killed him and now we have to end him. So in order to defeat Brute Boris, yes, that's what he's called, we need to wait for him to drop ink blobs and use it to make a gem pipe. Or a plunger if you're a complete jackass, and you hit him when he's stunned for a brief moment. Not a fan of this boss fight either. It's just like Bertram, it involves you moving around until you have a chance to attack. Also, sometimes I feel like it's hard to avoid Brute Boris' attack, with phase 2 being the most difficult to avoid. Oh, that's right, there's phases to this fight. Unlike Bertram where he only has one attack, Brute Boris has 3 different attacks depending on which phase you're in. Phase 1 has him simply punch if you're close. Phase 2 has him jump in the air WWE style trying to break your back. It's only hard to avoid because of how slow you go and how fast Boris flies in the f***ing air like an airline. Phase 3 is literally what he did at the beginning of the fight, except we're not in the cart. Okay, one thing I can praise about this fight though is Boris' design. I like that his design was made to be something you cared about and then being turned into a killing machine only designed to kill you. It's the reason why players would feel intimidated by him. I also like that Boris' design looks like Frankenstein, which, funny enough, was actually the inspiration for Boris' design. After ending Boris, Alice tries to kill us. Welp, guess you can't sue her ass now.
Don't worry, I'll find a way.
Man, I wonder who killed Alice Angel. What the fuck? What the fuck? Who is this? Why are there two of them? Why does he have a board like the one we already killed? And why is he so pissed? This is the end, isn't it? Chapter 5, the last chapter. So, apparently, out of all the chapters in Bendy and the Ink Machine, Chapter 5 is apparently the one where the fanbase is the most split on, and for good reason. Chapter 5 starts with a cutscene where we are held captive by both Alice and her wolf companion, Tom. This cutscene, for the most part, I like because it allows us to not only learn about them, but learn more about the inhabitants at the studio, like the Lost Ones, for example. We learn that the writing on the wall is drawn by all the people trapped here, supposedly a way to be heard. We also learn that they have been hiding here for quite some time, out of fear for the Ink Demon. And the final thing we learn from these cutscenes is that Tom is a massive dick! In the end, both Alice and Tom leave us for dead since the Ink Demon is supposedly close. I say supposedly with brackets because the Ink Demon, like I said back in Chapter 3, never appears until the end of the chapter. So them ditching us was essentially pointless. Oh, how wonderful! So overall, I do like this cutscene. There's just one problem. This cutscene is 5 minutes long, and you can't skip it.
You serious?
It's fine in your first playthrough, but in multiple playthroughs, especially if you want to get every achievement in the game, well... After that, we need to use the seeing tool in order to find the gem pipe in the toilet.
First off, why is there a gem pipe in the toilet? And second, what the fuck is a seeing tool?
The seeing tool is an item that Alice gives us. It allows us to see hidden messages. It's barely utilized. The only places in this chapter where it can be useful is when you need to break out of your cell and the final boss at the end of the chapter, that being the Ink Demon. After getting the gem pipe and breaking out of our cell, we walk down a hallway and find a boat where we can use to cross the river. But we're not alone, because there's a hand-like looking monster in the river and it stalks you in the entirety of the river section. Yeah, this game is weird, I'm not gonna lie. Your boat engine will get clogged multiple times throughout this encounter, so when the boat stops, you need to quickly unclog it with your gem pipe so you can progress. It's a very tense sequence, but my problem is that the boat moves slower than your mom! Which drags the sequence when it really didn't need to. After escaping the hand sea monster, we enter a town and...
There's only like one.
Oh, look at this. Oh, look, it's Sammy Lawrence. I clapped when I saw it. I clapped when I saw it. I clapped when I saw it. He's back. Look, I've waited for him for so long. I saw it. I clapped when I saw it. Consume product.
Somehow, Sammy Lawrence returns. By the way, Sammy Lawrence, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but... I did it. After killing his ass, we meet up with both Alice and Tom after betraying our ass like 10 minutes ago. Alice then explains how Sammy Lawrence was keeping the Lost Ones and Ink Searchers from attacking from this location. And now he's gone, everyone can feel free to attack anyone they want. So we then enter a hang on a damn second. What in the horde mode looking ass is this? Am I playing Bendy the Ink Machine or COD Zombies? This is pitiful. yeah, this is where my praises for this game essentially go off the rails for like 5 seconds. The Horde mode section in this game is literally one of the most painful things I've experienced in a video game. Well, besides playing through the entirety of Hello Neighbor without a guide. The reason why is because of the gameplay. The gameplay itself isn't good enough for something like a Horde mode of some kind to be involved. So stuffing it in leads to extremely negative results. And just like Alice's grocery list in chapter 3, it felt like this was implemented to paddle the chapter rather than adding in something cool. Except it's even worse here than chapter 3. After getting to the end of this terrible fight, we can finally move on to the rest of the chapter. Oh, come on! After falling again and probably breaking our kneecaps in the process, we encounter a maze-like office area. In order to progress, we need to make 3 pipes using a ink converter from chapter 4. The ink droplets can be found next to Joey Drew's office. Just like the Horde mode, this is also uneventful. Not as painful as the Horde mode we just experienced, but it still felt like padding in some way. Honestly, they should just rename this chapter from the last reel to the last padding. However, this area is very important lore-wise. Like I said in this review, I'm saving all the lore explaining when we get to the sequel. However, I want to discuss this one thing that splitted the entire Bendy community. So there's an audio recording from Thomas Connor, explaining that the ink machine was created by Joey Drew, with the sole purpose of creating living attractions out of his characters. Their attempt was to recreate Bendy, but it ended up being such a colossal failure that it caused Joey to lock it away. The reason this reveal splitted the Bendy community is that they theorized that the ink demon was going to be Joey Drew himself. So when it was revealed that ended up not being the case, yeah, it essentially left a sour taste in the community's mouth. And while it's pretty generic at first glance, as we'll see in the sequel, we'll see how this actually solidifies the ink demon, and why Joey Drew wouldn't work as the ink demon even if he tried. Anyways, never let the Bendy community cook again, am I right? After getting all the pipes, we drain the doorway and we enter the vault. We look for the tool to defeat Bendy. Unfortunately, it's already gone. We meet up with Tom and Alice again and make our way to where we supposedly think the tool has been taken to. The tool has been taken to the heart of the ink machine, which looks stunning from afar. Alice explains C and Boris can't come with us because they can't go through the ink since they would be claimed by the ink if they do so. So we have to go alone.
They could have at least given me a weapon.
We then enter the throne room of the ink machine, and we can listen to a tape from Joey Drew. Joey speaks directly to Henry that the only way to kill the ink demon is to play the tape titled The End. We then try to play the tape and... So we finally entered the final boss. Our goal is to get back to the throne room and to play the end reel. The gimmick in this area is that we need to flip all levers to open all doors in order to get to the next area. The catch to this is that Beast Bendy must have drank an entire can of G Fuel before this fight because he moves through walls throughout the area like he's fucking Sonic the Hedgehog.
Shit, because I thought it looked funny, but I think it was legitimately gonna get a heart attack.
And if he runs into you, it's instant death. There are ways you can make this fight easier though. You can use the seeing tool that I mentioned a while back that can show the locations of the levers. You can also hug the wall to make it harder for Beast Bendy to run into you. After pulling all the switches, we entered the second area. We now need to have Beast Bendy to ram into all 4 ink tubes, which is very piss easy. After that, we can now play the end and end the ink demon once and for all. And he dies. Yeah, this is jarring. Seeing this regular looking ass house after getting used to the dark cartoon-like style of the game is both extremely surprising and also very jarring. We also see other stuff from the game, like all the items on the pedestals from chapter 1, a bunch of letters and other papers on a clipboard, a storyboard that has all the events of the game on it, and possibly the most divisive ending I ever seen in a video game.
Henry, so soon. I didn't expect you for another hour yet. Now you're just trying to impress me. But I know. You have questions. You always do. The only important question is this. Who are we, Henry? I thought I knew who I was. But the success starved me. Nothing left but lines on a page. In the end, we followed two different roads of our own making. You, a lovely family. Me, a crooked empire. And my road burned. I let our creations become my life. The truth is, you were always so good at pushing, old friend. Pushing me to do the right thing. You should have pushed a little harder. Henry, come visit the old workshop. There's something I need to show you.
All right, Joey. I'm here. Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
Yeah, the entire Bendy community ended up being divided on this ending. So, what do I think of this ending, though? Yeah, it's shit. I don't want to come out like some negative person or anything, but this ending is not it, Chief. It felt like the entire journey was all for nothing because everything just restarted anyways. Don't get me wrong, I do get why some of the Bendy community thinks this ending is interesting. I think it's interesting to see why they want to discover the meaning behind it. But from an average player perspective, especially the ones that don't go on YouTube and watch every MatPat Fury video on this game to make some sense of the story, it felt like a waste of the player's time because of how half-assed the ending ended up being. Woo! That was one negative thing to get out of the way. Now let's get back to being positive before the entire Bendy community has an all-out war with me. After the ending, we get probably one of the best and unique end credit sequences I ever seen. The beautiful artwork showing off the best moments of the game, showing us the journey we've been on. Like I said at the beginning of this video, the big moments in this game make the game shine, and seeing the game show off some of those big moments off is really awesome to see. And the music also sells it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the music. The music is good in the entirety of the game, and it truly fits the cartoony dark tone that devs were going for. But the ending credits takes the cake for the best soundtrack in the game, that's for sure. When the credits finish, you get access to the seeing tool for all chapters. Remember back in the review where I mentioned the seeing tool was barely utilized? I lied. While chapter 5 does not utilize the seeing tool that much, it's the other chapters where it excels at. When you play the game again with the seeing tool, you see all these hidden messages that aren't like the ones from chapter 5. At first, these messages are confusing, but we realize that these messages are left by Henry himself, trying to guide himself to find a way out. You also get access to the archives after beating the game, which acts as a behind the scenes feature of this game. And I love this. One of my favorite parts about video games is when a game gives you the ability to pull back the curtains and see how the game was made. That be from concept art, video documentaries, etc. The archive in Bending the Ink Machine allows you to go up to the models, look at early versions of the Ink Demon. What the fuck is that? And even look at some fun facts about some of the models and characters. This is actually where we discovered that Brute Force's design was inspired by Frankenstein. Oh, and you even get an achievement for standing on Henry's display.
There you go. I got an achievement.
Bendy and the Ink Machine is the most loved or hated game I ever played. It has a ton of fantastic ideas and a fantastic art style. but it's held together with really bad flex tape. Sorry, Phil Swift.
Campers and campers and campers and campers and for fuck's sake.
Well, that was one wild ride, wasn't it? Fuck, I gotta take a massive shit. Well, that happened. So while Trending Manager is doing his business, let's take a look at the 2 spin-offs that released before the sequel came out. Oh my god, this fucking sucks! So after witnessing peak fixin', let's take a look at Bendy and Nightmare Run, the first ever Bendy game released for mobile devices.
You don't understand. It's like they took my son away.
Sure, you're acting like an average mom if Candy Crush got shut down.
So, unfortunately, this game is straight up unplayable. This is because the studio who made the game, Carmen Interactive, closed down. So the game went down with it. The game was recently delisted from both the app and Google Play Store. Very quietly, mind you. Thankfully, I remember playing this game back when it was playable, so I'll judge it off of that. And I'm going to be using 8-Bit Ryan's footage for this game since I can't record any footage for myself. So, you know Temple Run and Subway Surfers, right? That's Bendy and Nightmare Run, except the camera is facing the front instead of the back of your character. No way! I actually was bragging about this feature to my friends and family members, thinking it was some new innovative shit or something. Although to be fair, the other gimmick in this game that makes it stand out from the other games in this genre is that it isn't one. Well, kind of. In this game, you have 4 main episodes you can choose from. Bendy Walks the Plank, Bendy in Death and Taxis, Bendy in Soup Gone Bad. That episode is Scott the Waz's worst nightmare.
Is that a pinball machine? Oh my god, my ass is bleeding.
And the last one, Bendy in Duly Decimated. Each episode has a bunch of acts you need to clear, unlike other games in this genre. In order to clear an act, you need to defeat the boss in each stage, which gets harder in each act. You'll fight a different boss depending on which episode you choose. In order to defeat these bosses, you need to collect weapons that are scattered in 1 of 3 lanes. These replace the power-ups you would see in something like Subway Surfers. Each weapon will do a different amount of damage depending on what type of weapon you get. The one thing I'll give this game is its art style. It looks like an episode of a Bendy cartoon come to life. And that's the game besides that. And it's fine. It's obviously not the craziest game out there. However, I think the most insulting thing about this game is that there was no post-launch content. What? Yeah, unlike every other mobile game to ever exist, Bendy and Nightmare Run got 0 post-launch content. Even the most unsuccessful mobile games get something after they release. Bendy got nothing. It's almost like the devs let this game out to die. Which they did. I had fun when it lasted though, but it is a shame that nobody can play anymore, and a game treated the way it did. Maybe Bob the Builder can fix it!
Well, that was a complete waste of 5 minutes. Jesus! So it looks like Training Manager is still having battle issues. So let's take a look at the second spin-off that released in the BENDY series. And unlike the other one, this one released on Bendy's birthday.
Boris and the Dark Survival is an interesting game in the BENDY series. It was announced on February 5th and then released on both PC and mobile devices on February 10th, 2020, which is actually the day the first chapter of Bendy and the Ink Machine released, making this game an anniversary title. Man! Releasing a new game in a long-running series during a series anniversary always ends well! It was released for a whopping $3! $3! For the price of a candy bar, you can play as totally not Goofy from Mickey Mouse! So what is the game like? Well, to put it lightly, Boris in the Dark Survival is a roguelike. For those who don't know what a roguelike is, it's essentially a game that has randomly generated levels, meaning every run is a different experience. Areas are different, weapons are different, and on top of that, these games are hard as balls, like Jesus Christ! But unlike those roguelikes that you are currently seeing on screen, Boris in the Dark Survival is bare bones as hell. What? This is probably the most bare bones roguelike I ever played, and Cult of the Lamb exists!
You're too slow!
To be fair, I can have some fun with this game. That is, if this game wasn't complete bullshit! The problem lies with both the Ink Demon and its randomly generated element. The problem is that you cannot predict where the Ink Demon could be, which sounds like a weird complaint. Like, isn't that the entire point of the Ink Demon? And yes, that's true. However, in the case of Boris in the Dark Survival, this is a huge issue. The problem lies is that since the entire map is procedurally generated, you have no f***ing clue if a route either leads to a loop around back to the elevator or a dead end. Meaning, if you encounter a dead end and the Ink Demon is coming down that specific path, too bad, you're fucked. In something like Super Hot Mind Control Delete, for example, if you get encountered by either the dog, Nijala, or the addict, which are enemies that have special abilities that can't be killed, you have the ability to get around them and progress even if you have one heart left. But in Boris, if the Ink Demon corners you, which can happen a lot, you're fucked, and there's nothing you can do about it. The game also has a lot of collectibles. Besides the items you need to collect in order to escape, you can also interact with lockers and other interactables. Interacting with these will require timing it right so you can open the locker. If you're lucky, you'll find a piece of paper. These are also randomized in each run. If you collect all 6 pieces of paper, you actually put up the messed up drawing from chapter 3. We get a cutscene of it being that this picture was a glimpse of the man Boris used to be, and then it was gone. Well, that ending was kinda pointless. Well, at least we can move on to...
Hey Max, I know I've already cameoed in this video, but I'm here to tell you that Boris in the Dark Survival has gotten 3 content updates for free. Man, I love live service games.
Okay, that's all the time I've got.
I gotta get back to playing The Binding of Isaac on my wonderful laptop.
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, so unexpectedly for a game that costs free books, they decided to release free substantial content updates. I find it funny that the cheap spin-off got free content updates, but not the mobile game itself. Man, these developers are not that smart. I'm guessing they were able to release these content updates very quickly because this game reuses a lot of models and assets from Bendy in the Ink Machine. Some of these models were altered to work in this format, but besides that, most of the models you see were reused from Ink Machine. And in Nightmares Run's case, they definitely didn't have this luxury. So what did these updates add? Well, the Wolf Trials update added a new quest, which is collecting 5 sets of audio logs, and we learned about this character named Mila.
Are you talking about that dog again? No!
She is supposedly trapped and we need to rescue her. When we collect all audio recordings of her and the key to the door afterwards, we finally rescued her. But it turns out that Mila ended up being a total lie.
So that was a fucking lie.
And the person that was trapped was that bitch! After that, Alice now has a chance of stalking you every time you start a run. The Projectionist also has a chance of appearing in a run. In a secret, 414 floor was added, which is very rare to encounter. In the Unleashed update,
Sir, stop playing that music!
you have another quest. This time, you can unlock keys for this crate, which is
Locked up tight!
if you gather all the keys, you end up releasing all 3 Butcher Gang members, and just like Alice, they also have a chance of appearing during your run. The update also adds a new playable character. Wait, there's playable characters in this game? So in this update they added a lost one as a playable character. You can unlock this poor soul by collecting all the lost papers, which are scattered throughout each run, just like the other collectibles. You see, unlocking and playing as a lost one would have been cool if it weren't for the fact that this mutt moves just as slow as Henry Stein in a goddamn tractor. The final update, Symphony and Shadows, adds more areas to the hub, music tracks for the record player, and added the ability to have Boris dance differently. And the biggest addition to this update is the ability to play as Sammy Lawrence. Similar to the lost one, we need to collect 6 collectibles first, which for Sammy are candles, and after we collect all 6 candles, we need his mask. After getting his mask, we can now play as him. I actually prefer playing as him as everyone else. This is because Sammy has the ability to use ink portals, these gaps in the wall if anyone is confused. Meaning if he's chased by Bendy, Alice, or whatever, he can literally go through the portal and be like, aha! Bye-bye, bozo! Oh, shit! So, Boris in the Dark Survival. It's an alright game. This game is another case of being made very quickly with all its reused assets from other games. But the game can be fun at times. And again, the game is like $3. So it's not like you're wasting a lot of money by trying this game. Alright, now let's get to the game that I am most excited to talk about. Warning! The following section in this video contains spoilers for Bendy in the Dark Revival. If you haven't played the game and don't want to be spoiled, thanks for watching and see you next time. For everyone else, please enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you. So, out of all the Bendy games that I wanted to talk about in this video, Bendy in the Dark Revival is the one that I was the most excited to talk about. I have my reasons, so let's start on the game's development. And oh boy, it was something! The game was teased in a series of audio recordings released on Joey Drew Studios' official YouTube channel. Wait, what? Yeah, I forgot to mention this, but they were originally called the Melee Games, which was named after the original creator who made Bendy. Then it was renamed to Joey Drew Studios, the same name of the studio in-game. Yeah, that's not confusing. And then they changed their name to Kindly Beast, and then they changed their name back to Joey Drew Studios. The one thing the devs of Bendy aren't good at is deciding what name to use for their damn dev team. Anyways, the final audio recording revealed that the title for the Bendy sequel will be revealed on April 14, 2019. Fast forward to that date, and we finally know the name for the sequel, that being Bendy in the Dark Revival. Fast forward to June 24th of 2019, and we finally get a gameplay trailer for Dark Revival that definitely doesn't look fake. Then, on December 14th of 2019, they released a coming soon teaser with shows small snippets of actual gameplay and also shows that the game was actually going to look like. This is where fans started to get worried about Dark Revival will never see the light of day, mainly due since the game's first chapter was taking longer than usual. Joey Drew Studios knew fans were getting worried to a somewhat critical level, so they released a video on June 1st, 2020, explaining why the game was taking so long. They explained in the video that the reason the game is taking so long to be made is because they were scrapping the chapter-based system and releasing the game as a full product instead, which is completely understandable. And then silence. The game went completely radio silent from 2020 to 2022. Yeah, we got some screenshots here and there, but besides that, there was nothing. The Melee clarified that they wanted to work on the game rather than make trailers showing the game off more, which is something that they were doing throughout 2019. Okay, so it's gonna take some time for them to cook. It can only go up from here. What the hell happened here? So back in 2020, Kindly Beast, now known as Joey Drew Studios, were caught doing some not great things, like in the slightest. I'm not gonna go into the entire history of their controversy and their shenanigans because A, the video would be like 5 hours long if I did that, and this video is gonna be as long as it is. And B, I'm just here to judge the game and not the controversy that the devs got themselves into. If you want to know all the bullshit that they were caught doing, I recommend watching both of these videos. So after fans found out about this, they essentially lost all hope in Dark Revival ever releasing, with Joju Studios being sued by their merch maker essentially sealing its fate. I essentially forgot about Bendy for a few years, and hearing about this news was very upsetting to hear about. Fast forward to October 31st, 2022. This is a year I started uploading on Twitter. On that day, I was at school. I then went on Twitter at around 10 o'clock AM and I saw this. This is what piqued my interest, and then around 20 minutes later, the official Bendy account confirmed that a trailer for Bendy and the Dark Revival will be released tomorrow on November 1st, 2022. Who am I kidding? It's probably gonna look very underwhelming. Yeah, I was sold. I was super excited when this game was announced. It looked like they took everything great about the original and expanded it in the sequel. After the trailer released, I only realized how different my life was when compared to Dark Revival in the first game. I actually started high school when the final chapter was released in 2018. And here I am at 18 years old, finally graduating high school and finally being able to play the sequel from my childhood. It felt very nostalgic when thinking about this. And the crazy thing is, I didn't even need to wait long for this to happen because they announced that the game was going to be released in 2 weeks. Yeah, they really just said, yeah, let's drop the most hyped trailer ever and then proceed to say that we're gonna release it in 2 weeks. How does that happen? Even more ironic is that Bendy and the Dark Revival released 1 week after Sonic Frontiers, another game that I was really excited for. How ironic. Once November 15th, 2022 came, I bought the game at launch and played the entire game on my Steam Deck.
Sure, are you serious? Yeah, I'm on the highway to hell.
So to all the viewers who don't know what a Steam Deck is, it's essentially a handheld PC allowing you to play all your PC games anywhere. This includes Bendy. Now, it is true that I've gotten a pretty powerful gaming PC recently, that being back in December of this year, but I didn't get it until December of 2022, which was 1 month after the game released. So I had to improvise. The game runs completely fine on the Steam Deck, by the way. Speaking of consoles, similar to the first game, Bendy and the Dark Revival was also released on consoles. So let's take a look at that before we deep dive into the game itself. So this port is interesting. It was released on all consoles except the Nintendo Switch, which is odd because, like I said, this is a Mascot horror game, which is usually aimed at kids. And the Nintendo Switch is usually where all the kids are, so you'd think they would cast in and give the game to the kids too, but I guess they couldn't get it to run on the Switch. So it was released only on Xbox and PlayStation, so let's give it a shot.
Welp, it isn't dog shit.
Well, I'm happy to say that the console version for Bendy and the Dark Revival is leagues better than its younger counterpart. And yes, you could say that's not a very high goal to reach considering how abysmal the port for the first game was, and you're right. But this version is totally playable. The only thing that's holding this version back is that it's still 30 FPS. Now to be fair, it's nowhere near as bad as the port for the first game since they didn't scale down the graphics and especially the render distance. Not saying they couldn't have done a lot better, but as is, it's very solid. And yes, just like last time, the PC port is the best version of the game. Soccer. It's mainly due since you can play at 60 FPS on this version. Nice!
Hey Hey, you're finally done! I was just about to talk about Bendy and the Dark Revival in its entirety! Okay. Oh, and by the way, man, you left some games in the toilet while I was taking a massive shit. So I tried playing one of them to pass the time. And I'm telling you, man, that booger looking ass game is absolute dog shit. So the gameplay this time around is interesting. If Bendy and the Ink Machine was a walking simulator, then Bendy and the Dark Revival would be a survival horror game, akin to something like Resident Evil. The combat in Bendy and the Dark Revival was overhauled, which I am very glad they did since it was the worst part of the first game. The combat, while still being very simple akin to the first game, is way more polished compared to the first game. What makes the combat way better than the original is the introduction of abilities and stats. In Bendy and the Dark Revival, you gain different abilities throughout the game. Free upgrades for your hand and free upgrades for your jump pipe. Banishing, which is essential, gives you the ability to stealthily take down enemies. Flow allows you to move in any direction you want and allows you to cross certain gaps. And then Fast Travel, which allows you to backtrack to other areas throughout the game. Unlike the first game, you only use your jump pipe and nothing else. However, you can upgrade your jump pipe with new abilities. Unlike the upgrades in your hand, where you get them by going through the game normally, you need to fight Pipe Schematics? Oh yeah. You need to find pipe schematics and then go to the gen workshop station in order to upgrade your gen pipe. Mind you, you need to have a certain amount of materials to upgrade your weapon, which you can find throughout the studio. Another thing to keep in mind is that every upgrade can only be used if you have electricity in your gen pipe. There are power stations where you can charge your gen pipe. You can charge it if you have enough batteries. With your gen pipe charged up, you can use any of your free abilities you obtain throughout the game. Gen lock allows you to unlock certain doors, shock pipe allows you to stun enemies, and the stun pipe gives you the ability to stun keepers, which we'll get to them in a moment. Unlike every upgrade in this game, you probably won't unlock the stun pipe in your first playthrough. This is because the pipe schematic is guarded by this big brute blob named Steve. You need to backtrack to the kitchen and give him a big heart, and then he'll move. I like that the game doesn't force you to do pointless fetch quests unlike the first game, and a lot of the side quests in this game are either optional or for getting every achievement, which I did, by the way. You also have access to a skill tree. Throughout the game, you collect ink canisters, which allows you to upgrade either your health, stamina, and the flow abilities cooldown. You most likely won't max out your skill tree in your first playthrough either, since some of them are in hard to find places, and that's what this game does best, exploration. While the original game has some exploration elements sprinkled here and there, it was greatly expanded upon here. Besides all the upgrades you can get, there are way more audio recordings to collect, notes to find, memory collectibles that do nothing. Wow! The gameplay overall is an improvement in my opinion. And while the game is still simple at its core, it is still way better than the original. When playing both Bendy games, what immediately stuck out to me is the striking similarity to BioShock and also Poppy Playtime to some extent. Now, I'm not the only person that pointed this out, but it bears mentioning. For comparison between the two games, having a faceless protagonist, those said main characters exploring an abandoned place, both weapons functioning identically, having leaders that made a lot of crappy decisions, etc, etc. Personally, I don't think Bendy is a BioShock ripoff. It feels like they took some liberties from BioShock and made a different experience out of it. And it makes sense since BioShock is the Meatly's second favorite game of all time. So it's no wonder why the Meatly took some inspiration from that game for Bendy. But what about Poppy Playtime? Well, it's because people are calling Poppy Playtime a Bendy ripoff, essentially. So yeah! Okay. Now the story. So the story takes place after the events of the first game, 9 years to be precise. Instead of playing as Henry in the first game, we play as another animated artist named Audrey, who works at Wait. This isn't the Joey Drew I remember! I was supposed to say Joey Drew Studio, fuck.
Yeah, so to no one's surprise, JoeDo Studios filed for bankruptcy all the way back on August 24th, 1952. People blame two things in particular, the ink machine itself and Bendyland due to how much the studio was spending on it. And while those are good enough reasons on why they spiraled into bankruptcy, one thing ended up nailing JoeDo Studios in their own coffin. Yes, World War II was happening while JoeDo Studios were in dire straits. The reason why World War II was such a very huge problem was that it was nigh impossible to find animators, which was actually common during World War II. The company tried to release their old cartoons as a last-ditch effort to save the studio, but it unfortunately wasn't enough, and they ended up closing up shop. And then on February 10th, 1972, why does that date sound so familiar? Oh, JoeDo Studios were bought by one man named Nathan Ark, which is where the story first starts. If you're wondering where I got this information, the devs released these newspapers in an archive on their official site coming up to the release of this game. I'll link it in the description if you're interested in reading it. So the story starts with Audrey working late at night to get animation work done. She wants to get a cup of coffee to stay awake, so we go and get some. We take the elevator and then... Guys, this is Wilson, and spoiler alert, he's the main villain of this game. We exit the elevator and where's the coffee? Fuck, I'm gonna lose my will to live soon if I don't get some! So apparently I'm surrounded with 6 pedestals and I think I know what's going to happen. Yep, called it! Badass title card though. So we wake up and we find a message saying, welcome home. Welcome home my ass, you dipshit! After that, we went through some hallways and oh shit! We make our way to a recognizable place from the first game, Heavily Toys. And oof, it looks even more run down than in the first game. But on the plus side, similar to the first game, the game looks fantastic. Yeah, it's no powerhouse, but the graphics in this game kicked the first one out the window. The biggest improvement comes when you're in the actual world itself, you know, not the Inky realm obviously, where it looks like it has some cool shading to make it pop a whole lot more compared to what the first game did. And then all of a sudden, Alice Angel appears! She tells us that bacon soup is shit, explains the name of the monster we just encountered, which is Piper by the way, explains the dangers here, refuses to elaborate, and somehow teleports out of existence. How was that possible? Yeah, that cutscene was weird. Alice then tells us to head up to the upper levels of the studio, because it is apparently safer there. After that, we acquire the gem pipe, and we make our way through the studio. The story isn't going anywhere yet, like nothing has happened. Oh shit, he's real! Yes, for the first time ever, we can see actual Bendy and not the one that wants to kill us. Move over, Baby Yoda! Make way for Bendor! Unfortunately, we end up stalking him and he runs away. Wow, thanks Audrey, my day is ruined! After that, we make our way to a door and we can't go through until we gather all the paintings for this lost one. Not shortly after that, the ink demon appears. And yeah, let's talk about him for a sec. Or 10 minutes, I don't know how long this section is gonna be. As I alluded to a while back, the ink demon in this game takes everything wrong about him in the first game and fixes it. His new design embraces him being a demon. Sharper horns on his head, him having hoofs and not actual feet, and so on and so forth. They also gave the ink demon a voice in this game. To the voice actor's credit, I do really like the ink demon's voice, although there are some times where the ink demon sounds like he's gargling water in some of his lines. Another thing that was fixed is that the ink demon is no longer a joke. As I already said, the Ink Demon barely was a threat besides Chapter 3 in the first game. But in Dark Revival, while he does do the same thing in Chapter 3, the difference is that he can do this throughout the entire game. Meaning, at any point in the game, he can just appear out of nowhere and try to kill you. And the combination with his new scary design and voice makes him a threat to behold. He also has multiple kill animations that can trigger, making every time he kills you not being the same each time, which I greatly appreciate. Although to be fair, I wasn't able to find all of them because I was too cracked at hiding from him, unfortunately. So after collecting all the art pieces and placing them on the pedestals, the Lost One opens up the door and tries to kill me. How ungrateful! Also, apparently this Lost One doesn't know that copyright exists. After that, we encounter... Okay, so the next section of this video is going to be really loud. So if you don't want to end up like Peter and the gang in that one Family Guy episode where they watch CBS, then skip to this timestamp. If you're curious, then I pray for your ears. Enjoy! Fuck CHARLY! CHARLY is easily the worst thing I had to deal with in a video game. Okay, you wanna know how she works? Okay, so how she works is that there's a box, right? See this box? Well, if you let her out, you are essentially fucked. What she does is that at any point in the game, minding your own business, she can, fuck. What she does is that at any random point in the game, she has the chance to jump scare you and hurt you ass in the process. It is extremely annoying and there's no way to kill her since she's a ghost, canonically. And the worst part is that enabling her is completely optional, but the game doesn't tell you and my fat ass fire had to open it to progress. Well, fuck me! It was so bad I actually thought of restarting my entire playthrough just so I don't have to deal with that piece of shit! And the cherry on top of this fucking shit show is that there is an achievement which requires you to beat the game with her activated. Whoa, gee, that was worth it! After that, we meet with a lost one named Porter, who is really sweet, by the way. He's even the one that gives us a flow ability. He calls us Bobby, by the way.
Goodbye, Bobby! Try not to die!
After that, we make our way to the elevator and OH SHIT! We fall into an arena and we encounter the first boss fight. And the boss is actually inspired by one of the enemies from Bendy and Nightmare Run. Chester, one of the main bosses from that game, also makes an appearance in the first game, by the way. As for the boss fight itself, it's alright actually. You flip the switches to summon him and you whack him until he dies. Also, this is how the fight went. Yeah, I don't know how he keeps doing this. Honestly, I'm pretty sure the game is running out of steam because they probably sold off all the cool stuff already.
I believe there's something special in all of us. Especially you.
What the fuck? So all of a sudden, Joey Drew appears out of nowhere and then starts lore dumping on us. He explains that the cycle, the ink realm we're currently in, is a realm separate from the real world. It essentially operates like a never-ending record, where the same events keep repeating itself. Which not only explains the ending of the first game, but also explains why we see familiar locations and set pieces like Heavenly Toys. Another thing is that the entire realm is slowly degrading itself every time the cycle repeats itself. This also explains why the studio looks more run down compared to the first game. Audrey even asks Joey why he can't fix the cycle himself, and he actually gives us an answer.
You made this world. Why can't you fix it?
Because I'm not the man. I'm just the memory.
Joey Drew died in 1971, and the crazy thing is that this is not where they revealed this fact.
I just received the call. Joey Drew is dead. What a quiet end to an extraordinary life. Last I heard, he was staying in some cramped apartment downtown. You could practically hear the rats through the telephone when he called me last April. In spite of that, old Joey sounded quite happy when last we spoke. More like the excited, hopeful young man I knew once upon a time. Well, farewell, my friend. What will become of your creations now?
This moment did reveal when he died though, which was again 1971. And if you remember, Nathan Ark bought Bendy in 1972, 1 year after his passing. Another thing to note is that what you saw isn't Joey Drew, but a memory version of him. I neglected to mention this in the first game, but if you look to the left of the ending cutscene, you see the ink machine. This is because Joey Drew took the ink machine from Joey Drew Studios when they closed their doors. On his final moments on Earth, he was trying to transfer his memories into the cycle, so he can be a part of his own creation forever. And for those wondering, Archgate got their hands on the ink machine after his passing. After that, we make our way through a sewer, see Bendor again before running away. We defeat Lord Amok, who's some cult type leader. I prefer the lamb, honestly. And honestly, I think they're running out of impressive set pieces.
What in the world?
What the hell, a city? Who let him cook? Bob the Builder, probably.
You know, I really need to stop saying this. And we see Bendy again and he tags along with us. Look at him! Look at him! He's sick! You can even do this! Ha! Baby Yoda ain't got shit on this! The only sound that Baby Yoda makes when he gets whacked is... After that, we are... making our way downtown, walking fast, faces past, and oh shit! We now need to get into the gem factory, but we need to find a key card. At least Bendy is helping us. We eventually find a key card in the hotel and then, Jesus! We confront Joey Drew again and he wants us to see something.
Alright, Joey. I'm here. Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
Holy shit! That's right. Joey Drew took us back where it all began, to show us something. It was a treat itself to see the first area from the first game with Dark Revival's graphics. It showed how far we come from the first game. This honestly makes me want a remake of the first game with Dark Revival's graphics. But a man can only dream. After we finish looking around, Joey Drew then shows us the truth. This cutscene changed everything. Remember when I kept saying I was saving all the story explaining stuff in the first game for the sequel? Well, this is why. Joey reveals that the real Joey Drew was the one who created this realm, with its sole purpose to torture a puppet version of Henry. He did this because Joey Drew Studios, like I mentioned before, was in dire straits and he blamed everyone but himself. The one he blamed the most was his good friend Henry Stein, who left Joey Drew Studios in 1930 to start a family. After he left, Joey created this realm for the sole purpose of torturing a puppet version of him. This explains the entirety of the first game. The first game wasn't representing what the studio itself looked like, but instead representing all of Joey Drew's lowest points in the studio's history. The ink machine, the ink demon, Alice Angel, the failed experiments, and the unhappy people working there all showed up on display to point the finger at Henry and say, "Look what you've done. Look what you made me do." Despite all of this not being Henry's fault in the slightest, all Joey Drew wanted was to blame someone else for his failures and not himself. But then, one day, a miracle happened. He met a woman named Allison Pendle. She was the one who brought joy back into Joey's life, making him happy with what he had. He later regretted what he had done, and one day, he decided to give Henry an angel of his own. Which, yes, this Alice is a puppet version of Allison Pendle. They even adopt the name of Allison for her later on in the game. After that, Joey wanted to make something that he always wanted, but he could never have. A family, but not a cartoon one. Something real. After many tries, he created a daughter, and that daughter was named Audrey. That's right. Audrey is the daughter of Joey Drew. When I saw this cutscene for the first time, I absolutely lost my f***ing shit. No, seriously, the twists were so insane, I needed to take a 5-minute timeout and talk to a wall about everything I just saw. This is the reason I wanted to talk about the story of the first game in its entirety, because this cutscene essentially explains everything about how the first game came to be. The problem with the first game is that since the game got popular unexpectedly, they essentially had to keep making stuff up with each chapter because they never planned the story ahead of time. This is why the story in the first game felt confusing in places, and if I ever tried to explain the story at the beginning of the video, I could end up confusing you guys, i.e. the people watching this video right now. So I'm really glad that they took the time to explain those confusing parts and to flesh out not only the first game but also its sequel. One more thing to note is why Joey Drew couldn't be the Ink Demon. And the answer is simple. The Ink Demon doesn't have a soul. And Joey Drew does. It's that simple. After witnessing peak cinema, we then grab the keycard, open the door, and then... So, do you like Baby Yoga now?
I'm not adopting that green shit!
After being betrayed, we enter the gen laboratory and we run into the Keepers, who sounds like they keep lagging in a Call of Duty match when they talk in game. The Keepers are enemies created by Wilson himself, who are designed to kill the Ink Demon. Yeah, at the beginning of the game, Wilson claims that he killed the Ink Demon, which, as we know, was a fucking lie.
So that was a fucking lie.
Wilson ended up trapping the Ink Demon as a harmless version of himself, so that the Ink Demon wouldn't bother him again. Wilson and the Keepers tried to kill him, but they were unsuccessful, so they sealed him instead. And Wilson would find a solution to kill the Ink Demon in the meantime. And the reason the Ink Demon is active now is because Audrey woke him up when she electrocuted him. This is why he appeared shortly after that scene, by the way. But what about the Keepers themselves? Well, they essentially monitor the floor looking for intruders. If you're caught, you better hide, because they cannot be killed and they can kill you in like 2 hits. As I mentioned earlier, you can stun the Keepers if you have the stun pipe. After dealing with those Keepers, we enter a room with a bunch of holding cells. And hey, look, there's Sammy, Bertram, looking like he has some beef with us, that projected his head. Nothing? Oh, and the strange guy. Who is he? Wait, is that? No way, is that him?
My name is Henry.
Yes, it is him! Yes, they had the balls to show what Henry looked like. I swear, whenever I think they ran out of exciting scenes to show the player in this game, they're like, blam! Here's the man himself, Henry. I don't know, for me, that's what makes characters more memorable in my opinion. But wait, why is Henry and the others locked up in cells? Well, that's because Henry is classified as a cycle breaker. What's a cycle breaker, you ask? Well, they're pretty much the ones that tries to reset the cycle. I explained how the realm works, but how does it reset? Well, Henry explains in order to reset the cycle, we need to show the Ink Demon a reel called The End. Yep, the same one from the first game. Wilson doesn't want this to happen, because he wants to control this realm. So he needed to hunt down anyone that could be a potential risk to the cycle being reset, and Henry was definitely number 1 on that list. The TVA is gonna be fucking pissed when they see this. So now our goal is to find that reel and to reset the cycle once more. We move forward and actually gets captured by one of those Keepers. We wake up and... yeah, he's a creep. Wilson explains that he wants to control this realm and make it safe, saying that this realm is where we can create anything. but it needs to be controlled before we can do all that. So Wilson asks for Audrey's help and also to supposedly save his father's life. We enter this mansion and... we also meet a lady named Betty. Her origin is unknown and has a creepy looking mask, but she's nice, so who cares? Betty then guides us to our room where we need to rest. She talks to us on the way there. It's very nice to talk to her on the first playthrough, but on other playthroughs, however, hurry up, you slowpoke! I have other things to do in my life! We then go on a quest to get ingredients for the sleeping medicine because Betty forgot to give us a fist to make it. She gives us a fist and we then drink it in front of a mirror and then... Well, now we're captured. Alice wants us to solve a puzzle and its solution is interesting to say the least. I couldn't be bothered to deal with her fetch quest bullshit, so I looked up the combination on YouTube. That's right, we're gonna cheat! After that, we make our way upstairs and Jesus! Yeah, she has the Tommy gun from the first game, so for this fight, we need to flip all the switches in order to open the door to sneak up on Alice Angel and to banish her. Unfortunately, she catches us and tries to kill us. And before she has a chance, she gets killed by Allison. Again. On the topic of her trying to kill us, oh my god, look how long she takes to reload her stupid Tommy gun. Like, Jesus Christ! Someone needs to tell her that speed coexist. Actually, scratch that, don't give her any ideas. Alice's death in Dark Revival is far more tragic compared to the original. Alice's death in the first game was given zero focus, and more focus on the reveal of another Alice and another Boris. While it did add to the shock value, it did feel like Alice's death was totally wasted in the process. But in Dark Revival, they actually focus on her death a whole lot more, which I greatly appreciate. And I neglected to mention, but both Allison and Alice were originally voice actors for Alice Angel, in the cartoon that is. Susie Campbell, the original voice actor for Alice, and who is supposedly reincarnated as Alice Angel in this realm, was originally the voice actor for Alice Angel in the cartoon. And she was obsessed with the role. Maybe too obsessed. Because in the audio recording I mentioned all the way back in chapter 3 in the first game, Susie broke down mentally when she found out she was replaced by Allison. I guess Joey got way too attached to her, huh? In an audio recording in chapter 5, Joey offered Susie a role to bring Alice to life, which means that Joey would reincarnate her into Alice Angel. You could probably guess how that went. After that experience, Alice was so obsessed with how she looked so much, she ended up going off into the deep end, killing the lives of other cartoon inhabitants, including our poor Bud from the first game. And the cherry on top of this depressing Sunday is what we find after this cutscene. We find a note that is for Alice Angel, and it's actually from Allison herself. She tries to get through Alice, trying to convince her that she doesn't need to obsess over her looks, and she needs to do something she doesn't want to do before it's too late. Alice Angel was always beautiful, but by the time she sees it, it's too late.
Why does this feel so familiar?
Gee, I wonder why! After that depressing scene, we meet up with Alice and she brought Tom with him. Thankfully, he doesn't have beef with us this time around, so that's cool. Wait, pet? Oh my god, you can pet Tom? Oh my god, this is the greatest game that has ever been made with this mechanic. That's right, f you got it, abandoned! After sneaking our way through more keepers, we make our way back to Wilson's mansion. Betty says that Wilson is expecting us and he's in his laboratory. I go down there and, I think I took the wrong medication today. We then enter Wilson's laboratory and Wilson says the "you're at this point of no return" stuff that you see in pretty much every game nowadays. After that warning, we then enter Wilson's lab and he then reveals his real intentions. So first of all, that part where he said that he needed our help to save his father's life? Well,
So that was a fucking lie.
The reason he wanted us to come to the cycle was for us to be sacrificed. Yeah, screw this cult type shit. I'm going to join the peak fixing cult. The main reason why Wilson wanted us to be sacrificed was to become his own Inky cartoon creation. By doing this, he thinks that the monster can outclass the Ink Demon himself in every way possible. Doing this will allow Wilson to take control of the cycle. But why does he want to do this? I'll tell you why. Because he's so f***ing bitter for his father, who is none other than Nathan Ark himself. He claims that Nathan Ark considered Wilson an afterthought, a lesser man to an extent. At the beginning of the game, Wilson wanted to take control of the cycle to bring order to this realm, make it safer. But I don't think that's why he wanted to do it. He wanted to do this because in his mind, it's his way of surpassing his father in every sense of the world. And I'm gonna be honest, Wilson, you're f***ing retarded. Wilson is a great villain, and what makes him great is how much of a joke he is. Wilson saying he killed the Ink Demon wasn't just a lie in and itself, but he also did it with technology he didn't even create. Wilson subduing the Ink Demon wouldn't be possible without the technology that came from Gent. Wilson wouldn't be able to create the Keepers without the Ink Machine itself. And Wilson couldn't even overthrow the Ink Demon himself without Audrey. What a sick joke! While he's less intimidating than any other average villain, his backstory and his plan ended up being a coping mechanism is what makes him shine in my opinion. I also like how deep his voice is. Very intimidating. Anyways, into the meat grinder you go!
I thought this game was for kids! Dude, have you looked at the age rating for this game? Yeah, the game says it's rated E for everyone!
So Wilson had his soul being accepted, and if we go down to the room where the ink machine is, the monster that we created appears. Similar to the first game, the first phase of this fight involves you tricking the monster in order to turn off all the single blockers. The second phase involves us avoiding all of his attacks until it's safe to hit him. Gonna be honest, I died an embarrassing amount of times in this section. We banish Wilson, but it doesn't kill the monster. And then the monster breaks our legs. And then the Ink Demon comes in and wrecks him. If you want more evidence that Wilson is a talentless joke of a person, here you go! The Ink Demon then tries to convince us to join him, by saying things to Audrey like being a mistake and her life being a terrible lie, even though A, that's not true in the slightest, and B, why is saying this to us? Our legs got cooked for Christ's sakes, just consume us already! Oh thank f***ing God! We then merge with the Ink Demon to become BENDY, and as if nothing else is happening, Joey Drew appears with the end reel. He then tells Audrey that all of the things the Ink Demon said to us, yeah, it was all bullshit. The Ink Demon then snaps Joey like a twig to try to silence him, but it's too late. Audrey took control of the Ink Demon's body. And then the game shifts into maximum overdrive in like the last 15 minutes, when I get to actually play as BENDY for the final section of the game, who looks way better than his 2017 counterpart. He's got legs now! That's gotta count for something. We shred lost ones and break down walls to get to the projector. Both Alice and Tom aid us. Porter appears one last time to say goodbye. Sammy Lawrence appears to say some more cult type shit, and then ends up being shot by Alice. And Henry appears one last time to open the door to where the projector is. This ending not only blows the first game's ending out of the water, but also every other ending in Mascot horror history. That's That's right! Fuck you, Hello Neighbor 2! It's truly a spectacle to play as the Ink Demon and destroy everything in your path. But it also doesn't overstay its welcome, unlike the first boss in the first game. We use the projector, which is actually the head of the projectionist, by the way. We then play the reel and...
Throwing flashbang!
Ah, my eyes! After that, the cycle restarts once again. But now Audrey is in control. She can't fix everything, but she can make the cycle more bearable for everyone else. We then turn around and see that Bendy is living in the real world with us. After that, we are given end credits akin to the first game, and it's fantastic. I have nothing else to say about the end credits. I love both equally. The music that plays during the credits is also on par with the first game. After that, we return to the title screen, and guess who's back? Yep, the archive is back from the first game. Unlike the first game though, the archives wasn't available at launch. It was added on April 11th of 2023. The archives in Dark Revival is just as good as the first game. A little better in fact. It's mainly due to how the archive is laid out. In the first game, you can tell they reused the area from the brute Boris fight for the archives in the first game. They most likely used the original assets to make the archives for this game, making it look like an actual museum rather than feeling like a flea market. So that's the entire Bendy franchise, and I've got to say, I really like this franchise. Realistically, Dark Revival is the only Bendy game I can call good. Great even. Bendy and the Ink Machine, while not terrible, definitely has a lot of issues holding it back, especially because of how inaccessible the game is to most people due to how busted the console versions are. And the two spin-offs aren't anything to go by either, despite having fond memories of those games in particular. But still, Bendy will still have a special place in my heart, as the franchise that got me into the horror scene as a whole.